Welcome everybody out to sea. Day 11, no alcohol. There's fleeting cravings here and there, but it's nothing overwhelming. I'm exercising more, and that helps. The Suboxone dosage I have decreased by half a milligram. I've been taking 4 milligrams a day. I'm now taking 3.5 milligrams a day. The plan is to do that for a week and drop down to 3. So another small victory, and I'm starting to try to picture myself detox from Suboxone, feeling better, and through that, I'm envisioning myself detoxed and done and moving forward. So another day, day 11. Let's keep talking about LSD, and let's go into the lore of massive doses a little bit. I've spoken a little bit about the fingerprints, where you stick your finger or thumb into a jar of raw crystal LSD. And if you have a jar of crystal LSD, that means you have at least a gram, 10,000 hits plus. The first time I saw anybody doling out fingerprints was a young man on the Ave. He'd hang out in front of the Last Exit Cafe on 53rd in the Ave. He had a jar with 7 grams of raw crystal in it, and the guy could barely say anything other than "Je." He would let you stick your finger in that jar. And Rob talked about the fingerprint as though it was an initiatory thing. With this guy, there was nothing profound or initiatory about it. It was just extreme drug taking. And that's the first time I learned about the fingerprint. And it doesn't even sound real or possible. But the thing about LSD, I don't think there's a documented LD50. It's not going to be lethal physically. It can change you forever mentally, but you can take an awful lot of this stuff and it's not going to kill you. So the most LSD I ever took, the most profound experience I ever had, was not a fingerprint, but I got puddled. I got what's known as being puddled. So I had a whole bunch of this liquid squirted down my throat. And this wasn't your standard liquid, this was wash. This was some family wash. So what this was, Rob had a Gerber baby food jar, and the top of it had 10G written on it in magic marker, denoting that at one point there was 10 grams of raw crystal LSD in there. So he had sold all that 100,000 doses, and there remained about 4 points on the bottom of the jar, or 4/10 of a gram, which is 4,000 doses. So these guys took a food coloring vial, purple food coloring vial, plastic teardrop shaped food coloring vial. It's got a red cap. It was purple food coloring. They emptied that out, replaced it with vodka. You have now purple vodka. You squirt that in the Gerber baby food jar, shake it up, suck it back up into the dropper. That 4,000 doses is now concealed in about 200 drops. So each drop is around 20 hits. When you consider that a dose of LSD is micrograms, millionths of a gram is 10,000 hits. A tenth of a gram, or a good line of cocaine, is 1,000 hits. You can fit an awful lot into one drop of liquid. So I'm with Froje. We're in the U District, and we're going to go to this club down in Pioneer Square. It wasn't a happy, bouncy, like, house music night. It was like dark drum and bass and jungle. We're in the U District, and he decides, let's stop by my buddy Lee's house. Now Lee, he's a family cat. He's been on tour, and he's mainly dealing with weed. We get over there. He has this vial, this vial of wash. It's kind of been getting passed around by these guys like it's a novelty of sorts. And he suggests that I take some of this. And so Lee, he kind of treated me like a little bitch. He kind of wondered what I was doing around. I was a little kid. At this point in time, I had a black eye. I'd been jumped a couple weeks before. So his girlfriend was like, who is this kid? So he decided to puddle me out. And he told me to open my mouth. I was hesitant, but I didn't want to be a little bitch, since my masculinity was wrapped up in extreme drug taking. I figured he was going to give me a drop or two. I knew this stuff was really strong, and I was scared. So I opened my mouth. I feel a little stream squirt down my throat, enough liquid that I had to swallow a little bit, and I could kind of see out of the corner of my eye that he like squirted a stream down my throat. I don't know how much. It was a good squirt of this stuff that was 20-ish hits per drop. So this guy looks at me. He's got curly hair, aquiline nose, and with a somewhat malevolent, knowing look of childish wonder crossed with wicked glint. He says, "Can you feel the tingle in your jaw, man?" And my jaw is tingling on pins and needles. Now, prior to this, I'd taken about 25 hits of acid in one sitting. I split a vial between me and 3 other people. Between the 4 of us, we drank that vial. However, this is with Adam, and he had a bunch of 1 milligram roofies he brought back from Tijuana. Rohypnol is fantastic for taking massive doses of LSD. It reduces any and all anxiety, and you can just lay there and watch it bloom. So I watched everything bloom for about 2 days on that 25 hits, and it was beautiful. You know, I was crying in just awe of the beauty. So I'd taken a lot of LSD in one sitting leading up to this, but I had powerful sedatives. So Lee wants us out of his place real quick. Okay, so in solidarity, Fro took a squirt of this stuff too, all right? And he took the biggest dose of LSD I've heard of anybody taking. Rob said they fed him a 5-pack on tour, 500 hits. And Rob said his mind went into a loop. So at least Fro did it with me, you know, because these guys were taking these kind of dosages themselves, you know. So we leave his place. We're down the stairs, out on the 15th, down 47th, down to the Ave, and we jump on one of the number 70 buses to get downtown. This is within minutes of getting puddled seriously hard. We're getting across the University Bridge, and we're getting onto East Lake, and I'm sitting on the bus. I'm looking down at the black rubber floor, and it starts to gently explode into ribbons, and I'm getting nauseous, and I can tell I'm going to throw up soon. I already have a phobia of vomiting, and I'm on the bus, and I'm more grilled on LSD than I've ever been, so this is not going well. I start to dry heave, you know, I start retching, so people really are turning around and looking at me. It's not just paranoia, and so I demand, we're getting off the bus. And at this point, the idea of going down to Pioneer Square sounds like the worst possible idea. I know I need to get home to my mom, and quickly. So Fro doesn't want to get off the bus, but he humors me. And there we are on East Lake. It's dark out. There's nobody around. We're by like a dry cleaner, and there's a restaurant across the way, and then the bus stop across the street by a field. I'm telling him I need to go home. He's just wanting to go to the club. I'm thinking he's going to be able to help me. I look at this guy, his eyes are dilated to psychotic proportions, and he starts dry heaving too. Whoa, whoa. It's like, oh man, I'm on my own. This guy's not going to be able to help me. But he was at least in the same state as I and had more experience in that state. And he did suggest that. You know, he did say, listen, man, we're both in the same state. We need to stick together. But I knew I was in trouble, and going to Pioneer Square was a bad idea. So the next bus comes along, Fro jumps on that, and I watch it barrel down the street towards downtown, leaving its lights exploding behind it, printed into the street, and there I am, alone on the street. So I'm rapidly deteriorating, and fear is setting in. And there's a constant thread of sanity telling me, get home to my mom. So, okay, I can do this. I know how to take the bus. So I get across to the next bus stop. I freak out because I forget I have a transfer in my pocket, and I find a $5 bill and decide I need to get change for this $5 to get on the bus. At the time, I was paying like 75 cents youth fare. So I go to the open restaurant. I walk in. A woman greets me. You know, hello, sir, table for one. I have my arm extended with the $5 bill, and I realize I can't talk. And I'm sure I looked pretty insane. So I ran out of there. She looked at me like I was just insane. I get back to the bus stop. I find the transfer in my pocket. That was a relief. And then, hallelujah, a bus comes barreling down the road, throws on its brakes, comes to a screeching stop. And it's not the normal double long accordion bus or the short bus. It doesn't even have a number on the front. And it's kind of the short shuttle bus. The driver swings the door open, says, "You going to the U District?" I say, "Yes." He says, "Hop aboard." There's nobody on this bus except a fellow Metro employee sitting up front talking to the driver. I go sit in the back. The fluorescent lights are exploding above me. My body is electricity. I feel like I'm turning inside out and going to explode. And I'm doing the best I can to just hold it together. Nothing to see here, just normal guy on the bus, right? Right, sure, buddy. So, we shouldn't have had to go that far to get back across the University Bridge, because I mean, I just crossed the thing, right? So he takes a turn on Roanoke like he's going to get on I-5, and my worst conspiratorial paranoid fears became true. You know, this isn't a Metro bus. These people are here to take me away. That's why there's nobody else on it, and it wasn't numbered. Let me off now. I start screaming at the driver, "Let me off." He starts trying to explain that the U Bridge is closed for maintenance and he's taking a detour around I-5 to get to the U District. I'm not having it. And I think he could tell that he wasn't dealing with sanity, so he let me off. I'm off the bus. It's dark, and I'm just up off East Lake. And the deepest fear struck me of being lost. I've never been... That's the only time I've felt absolutely lost. Just the deepest fear of, I don't know where I am. I knew where I was trying to go. I was trying to get to my mom's, but it was all unfamiliar. It was all foreign. I couldn't tell. The tree branches were dancing like bones. In the dark of the night was somehow illuminated. So I'm off the bus, and I remember I just need to get over to the U Bridge. I managed to approach it to where I can see it just in the distance, and I wonder, why are all these flashing lights around it? I get closer and closer. The lights are flashing, and there's big, massive orange detour signs and arrows saying to go around. Is this possible? Am I hallucinating all of this? Didn't I just come across this bridge? How is it closed for maintenance now? How did it happen that quickly? There's sparks flying off of it from welding or something as such. For a minute, I ponder swimming across the canal, because I'm a good swimmer, you know, so that's a good idea. It's probably the most efficient way to get across, right? So there was a constant acre of sanity saying, "Get home to my mom, but do not get in the water." So I remember that if I was to head east about a mile, I can get to the Montlake Bridge, and I can cross that to Sandpoint Way. That's a viable plan, so I do that. I start making my way east to the Montlake Bridge. I don't make it more than a block when the deepest fear envelops me and I know that I'm going to die. I turn around and look. I see what I believe to be a black Honda CRX that the two men who jumped me and beat the hell out of me drove. So I went and hid in the bushes of this woman's house about a block from the U Bridge. I don't know who actually lived there. I always described it as a woman. Who knows? I curl up in fetal position in these bushes and I die. I experience the fear of a horrific death, and I feel myself start to have a little seizure, and I shake out of my little frail body, and I watch myself leave my body in those bushes and head up into space. I watch the twinkling lights of Seattle and the bones of the branches dancing in the trees, and I'm up in space, and it's black, and the fear is dissipating. It's peaceful. As I've died, what is there to be afraid of? Everything turns to black, and I hear the crying of an infant. And I think maybe it's one of my younger sisters, but then I realize it's me as I've been reborn. A pinhole of light explodes into orange and yellow and red, and I start heading back down to my frail little body in those bushes in the U District. I come to, I've pissed my pants, I'm in my club gear, and there's no more fear. I am ecstatic. I watch a sheet of crystalline ice cover the entire reality around me. I walk across the street to an apartment complex where the buzzers are on the outside of the door. I become enamored with a spider web that's up in the corner and decide that I need to let Lee know about what's happened, that I'm part of the team now, right? I have seen the mystery. So I start hitting these apartment buzzers. and managed to wake someone up. Hello, who is this? Lee, you won't believe what I've seen. You've got to let me in, man. I'm out here. What? Who is this? Lee, it's me, man. I've seen the mystery. You have to let me in. I was lucky enough no one called the police on me. Eventually, I found my mom's house keys in my pocket. And I was reminded, oh yeah, I have a mom and a dad and sisters and a house to go to. And I had decided that even though I had died and been reborn, I was somehow in a state of purgatory and nobody knew I existed, so nobody could see me. So I decided to walk back down to the University Bridge and inspect a little further. I get there, there's still the flashing detour signs, and there's a dog approaching me and a man with his work truck. I approach him and begin asking my mom's name. I'm looking for my mom. He sees me with my pants pissed in a psychotic state. He doesn't say a word. And I remember, oh yeah, nobody knows I exist. He can't see me or respond. I bravely make my way back to the apocalypse of the University Bridge and all the flashing lights, and it's just absurd. And I see a little sign that says pedestrian access only. Huh, okay. I muster up all my courage to cross this bridge, and there's sparks flying off of it from somebody welding. I make it about halfway across, and bam, full time. The next thing I remember, I'm about 3 miles away by the Children's Hospital on Sandpoint Way, right by my mom's. So I don't know what happened within that time, but I at least went the right direction. I get to my mom's, I slowly slide the key in, and I wonder, do they exist? I get inside, kick off my shoes, and with some fear and uncertainty go check my little sister's room to find them alive. I find my mom and my stepfather asleep and alive, and I go into my room with gratitude. The streetlight outside is dancing with my half-open blinds, and I turn on 90.3, and they're playing this instrumental hip-hop song. It's just perfect. The DJ comes on, I believe it was Michelle Myers, and she said, we took a little detour there. I imagine she was talking about, in regards to the playlist. However, that synchronicity regarding the little detour I'd just taken, it was perfect. I'd come into contact with the mystery. I'd died and been reborn. I'd come into contact with God. And I wanted to tell everybody about it. I of course didn't sleep that night. My mom wakes up about 6:30 in the morning to find me in the living room, ranting and raving like a religious convert. She makes me some tea. And as the morning progresses, I decide I need to talk to Froje about what happened, because, everyone has this experience, right? I get over to him in the U District. He's hanging out with Josh Thorpe, the guy who would eventually set me up with the DEA. And I start talking about this religious epiphany I've had. And they're all looking at me like I'm insane. I remember Josh Thorpe saying, yeah, have fun, bro. And I came to find that not everybody was having these, cathartic, revelatory, spiritual experiences on LSD. A lot of these guys were just, it was viewed as nothing more than being really, really high. Stanislav Grof, the psychologist, or maybe he's a psychiatrist, I'm not sure, but he did extensive research on LSD back in the 50s and 60s when he was legally able to do so. And he identified a common experience at the higher doses where people have these death and rebirth experiences. Maybe if I had some guidance and I wasn't fishing out in the bushes in someone's front yard by the U Bridge, this could have somehow been beneficial if it would have been treated as a rite of passage. But this is what was going on back in the day, man. Back when LSD was cheap, when you were getting grams for $3,000, the stuff was 30 cents a hit. It was easy to throw it around like it was nothing. And people certainly weaponized it. I watched Rob give his mom a squirt from this same vial I was given. So I watched him do that to his mom. He had a party at his house and he had all of his kind of minions come over. He gave his mom a squirt of that vial. And I remember she was sitting in her chair with her glasses on. She was kind of vibrating. And from time to time she'd make this little shriek like, ee! And she looked at Rob and said, "It's your fault I'm in this condition, Rob." And he kind of had this look when he knew he was ashamed and did something wrong, kind of like a bad dog that's kind of like, So, that's just what was going on with these guys. Years later, I'd come into contact with this guy, Lee, who gave that to me, and he apologized, actually. He's like, "I'm sorry, man. That's just what we were doing then. I would never do that now." Fingerprints, Puddles, I think the fact that LSD is so much more expensive now, it makes it harder to weaponize it, which is probably a good thing. Nobody needs to be taking fingerprints of LSD. The chemist Tim Scully, who was working with Nick Sands, synthesizing all that orange sunshine for the Brotherhood of Eternal Love back in the day, he's quoted as talking about, he also believed that LSD could save the world, nothing short of bettering humanity. And he talks about the more and more they were pumping acid out and the more the Bay Area was getting saturated. He goes down to Haight-Ashbury around Golden Gate Park and he talks about all the homeless hippie kids he sees on the streets whacked on LSD. And he had to think, is this positive? It doesn't seem positive. It seems like these kids are suffering and struggling. And he had to admit, maybe I've been wrong. Maybe this LSD is not helping us. So somehow I took this profound experience I had when I was developing. I was 16 and it changed me and it made me evangelical about spreading LSD. That's a side effect having these profound psychedelic experiences can have, is you want other people to have it too. Maybe it's as simple as misery loves company. I don't know. That's not how I viewed it. I thought that having these experiences somehow makes you a softer, better human. I'm not so sure anymore, man. But anyways, day 11, another small victory. And we'll continue talking about LSD lore, and we'll get into some Ibogaine stories real soon here. Much love, everybody.